What are your thoughts, just general thoughts with no name specificity, but just general thoughts on you alluded to it earlier, but the I don't want to say rise because it's always been a thing, but just the increase in reliance on shillers. And when I define a shiller, I'm defining anyone who is paid specifically for the purposes of a product. I'm not talking about people who are legitimately hyped on their own money, their own belief. I'm talking the ones, um, hey, we paid this person $15,000 to host or whatever, or to shill it. What are your thoughts on just the increased use of that?
So I think that we want to be in a lot of instances as like it's still very difficult for me to believe that I have any influence on anybody on their decisions, even though I get constant messages from people telling me they made money or they invested in something because of me. It's very difficult for me to accept that I influence people in some way like that
Hmm.
because I never see myself that way. But by the same token, I'm an advertiser in some
Yeah.
way. So um, every 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 medium that we use in entertainment includes advertising. So why not crypto? Why not using an influencer as basically your advertiser? Um, if that person is willing to leverage their credibility to another token or something like that, I don't see the actual problem. When you have somebody who is not very good and who will just shill any tokens. And I see them every once in a while. And I do help guys. I do shills for people. One of the things that I do is, and I'll be very frank about it. Volt Inu. When I
Hmm.
got started with Volt Inu, I had big problems with them. Like I had huge questions before I would put out a video, and they were offering me opportunity. Uh, Before I would do anything, I had to make sure that everything was right because, like I said, I'm not used to being an influencer, but if I'm going to influence somebody, I want to influence them in the right way.
Right.
And so I start reading through it and I start going through and I start asking questions and I'm asking hard questions. I'm asking the questions I would be asking Russ if he ever came on my show. Russ, if you're watching this, you hear me. Um, and they answered everything. Like they had an answer for everything. And sometimes when you have an answer for everything, you think, okay, these guys, yeah, I know they're on to something here, but they were genuine.
Right.
So then I did the first video, then I did the second video, then I did the third video, and then before I know it, the coin is doing exactly what every other token does. It has its big moon in day 3 or 4. It goes up, then it consolidates down at the bottom. Then we see what you're made of. Then
Yep.
I start telling people, this is the opportunity to buy in. This is what I'm going to predict. And then I start making this absolute prediction about what's going to happen. And people are like, "Are you sure?" Well, I keep saying I'm always right on my video, so I better be sure.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not sure, but I do think that this is what's going to happen. And everybody who invested when I was telling them that, look where they are now. They're
Right.
up. Where they up right now? 9x, 10x off of it, just like that. And it's because as an influencer, I had the responsibility of performing that due diligence. Now, not everybody has that, but
Right.
as an advertiser goes, that eventually weeds you out of the market. So, today I continue to gain subscribers. I continue to gain followers. There's a cap on it somewhere. I don't know what
Mhm.
that cap is. I think Zach Humphreys might have 50,000. I know Jake Gagan is somewhere near 50,000. But when you look at some of the videos that we all do together, I get as many views as these guys. So I'm not sure what their subscribers are or where their subscribers come from or anything like that. But um, uh, if you don't do the right things, and when I bring up Jake Gagan or Zach Humphreys, by the way, I think that um, they do a pretty good job of what it is that they do.
Yeah.
So, but when you start to do it wrong, which I think that there's a guy by the name of Del Crypto who was involved with Lily, and there's a lot of bad things going around today, and we see how that shakes out. Like, is his credibility shot? But if it's not, then he continues to influence, and if it is, uh, then he moves on and he's
Yeah.
no longer part of that verse. So I think advertising is good. It's one of those things that you have to do. I don't think here's the place that I have the problem is the advertisers themselves. When
Right.
you look at, and I'm gonna name names, But there's a guy named Ralvero on Twitter.
Hmm.
There's a girl named Natasha on Twitter. There's a couple of them like that that have 100 or 200 or 500,000 followers. They have no influence whatsoever on a token, but they are paid influencers. Those are the people, if I have a problem, that I have the biggest problem with, because I didn't understand it at first. Then I started to understand it. They're not naturally created, they are farmed.
Right.
Natasha, whatever the name was before, was named something different. Best crypto ever, or whatever the case may be, and started offering $20 in crypto to one person if you like, subscribe, and retweet. So people
Yep.
started following because they wanted free money. And who won that free money every time? Well, one of her alts.
Yeah.
And they continued to build that way, and they continued and they kept on and they kept on and they kept on, and they just built their market with fake people. If you go look at some of the interactions on the threads that they have, it's it's what do you call it, like bot generated.
Yeah.
You go look at it, it's bot generated.
Yep.
And then now that you have so many followers, then you go into a Telegram, they're like, this Natasha person has 536,000 followers. We got to pay them. And then you pay them for a shill. And there's like 30 people a day. I mean, that bot farm is making so much money off of just that. And it's not contributing value to anything or anyone.
Yeah.
So if I have a problem with any of that, that's where I have the problem. When you don't ask questions and you don't do your due diligence, because I have an obligation to 13,000 people that follow me to give them the best information that I can. And that way I only take the money from the people. If I'm going to do a shill of any sort, then I'm only going to do it from somebody that I believe is trustworthy. And not everybody ends up qualifying, or not everybody ends up in the end, but that's what I hope that everybody is, or starting to see that um, advertising is great, and we're just advertisers. That's all we're doing. And
Yeah.
we should do the best we can for the people that follow us to give them the truth.
But you identified pretty much two different things because you're referring to people that they're paid to do due diligence
Yeah.
in the benefit of a project, which you draw also the contrast against people who are just paid to call it. They don't know anything about the project, don't care anything about the project, don't care anything about the followers. And so it feels from what I see that there's a lot more of the ones that are just paid because of that exposure and number of holders or number of followers,
Yeah.
rather. They're just paid because, or celebrity status, right? Versus the ones that are compensated because we want you to scrutinize it, ask the questions, hold us accountable, and then prepare that to the world and say, look, I vetted these guys. I see they're solid and they're worth your time and money. So I appreciate that you drew the two because when I interviewed Mr. Segala, he specifically called out this side over here that are just paid. Well, then they might be paid or they invest in the token. They're ones they cause the spike and then they dump it, and that hurts everybody else. But ones that are that's like I'm still in this and I did the due diligence and I'm still in it with you, which you do a great job of doing, is a totally different type. And I don't think there's enough of those people from what I saw.
So um, we are in we're in a frontier. This is like one of those old west type things. Like, we're exploring new ground in crypto. We're the pioneers of this entire space. It's been around for a little bit of time, but less than 4% of the people in the world are involved in crypto in any way. So we are still at the ground floor of whatever this is going to become. If we were at the ground floor of television, or the ground floor of the internet, or the ground floor of radio, for anything, there's always been advertisers. And you know
Yeah.
what? Some of them aren't very good. And over the course of time, the good advertisers became the advertisers of today that we use. When you have something and you need an ad company and you need somebody, then you're going to go to a specific ad firm, a specific marketing place, because those are the ones that the successful people use. Crypto is going to end up in the same place. We're just not there yet. Right now, we're just testing everybody out. We're kicking the tires on this whole new genre, this whole new thing, and we're seeing what works and what doesn't work. So if what I'm doing doesn't work, then you're going to find somebody that does work. If what I'm doing does work, then you're going to stop using somebody who doesn't. And uh, every business is free to choose. One of the great things about America is you do have the freedom to decide who it is that you will or will not do business with. Now, you as an investor can be mad at the person for choosing somebody who's not a great that you can be mad at somebody who gets you wrecked because they made the bad call in the ad market. But when enough people are, that person's going to disappear. And you do see people disappear from this space
Mhm.
all of the time. Steve at Rocket Crypto is just gone right now. Like you haven't seen
Yeah,
him
yeah,
in a little while. He's going to remake himself at some point, and and not because of anything bad, by the way. But
right,
you see people that disappear or that give up or that are finished because not everybody is cut out to give you an objective opinion, and when you don't do that and you can't give that objective opinion, you will fall by the wayside. You might have a good run, you might have an awesome run. I hope, and I know better because people are people, but you hope that the true colors never show up, um, because there are no true colors, that you've been true the entire time. But when the money starts to become crazy, then things get different. I um, you work harder, you shill harder, you start doing more because when it becomes more worth it, then you hope that people are going to do a better job. But sometimes you just don't because the money is too much. And if I could use $5,000, and if somebody today offered me $5,000 to shill their product, and I need $5,000, then why am I taking food off my plate?
right,
Insert, you know what I mean? Like it's a very difficult thing for somebody to do, because it's also easy for me to convince myself that these guys need my help too. So it's just a matter of this whole market has to weed itself out, and we have to get to the people who are worthy of those advertising dollars.
right. Do you
And like that's where we are.
do you think though that, because I don't classify you as a shiller, and I say this because it, like, there's almost a strong difference between why you took money, right? If you take money just because you take money and that's just your job to take money, I draw a difference of that versus you're paying for a service, you're paying for due diligence, you're paying for coverage, you're paying for assistance, you're paying for consultative. To me, that's advertising, right? It's pretty much advertising, but like that's different. I've never seen, from what I can go back in your videos, I've gone through a lot of them. I've never seen where your thumbnail does nothing more than have you with a shocked face looking up at the 100x in broad bold with with shadowing behind it and a Lamborghini in the background. I've never seen you do that. So to me, that paradigm is way different than what you do. You basically say, "Volts here, I'm with it, I'm with you. Here's what I see when I look at the graph, folks. This is where it looks like we're going. We're on a good path." Or, hey, it looks like we're falling off a little bit. I think it's going to recover, or so on. It ties back to the fundamental. So I personally don't even treat you as a shiller in definition because it feels like you're informing, and you're with them. You're not just a I took it and that's all my job. So I want to just clarify that also for listeners, but also for you, that I don't put you in that category because the thumbnail doesn't lie. Your thumbnail, well, everybody else's thumbnail lies. Your thumbnails don't lie to people. Your thumbnails tell the truth as you see it from a fundamentals versus others where their thumbnails are designed to get you to click on it. Does that make sense?
Yes. And when you're in YouTube space, there's multiple ways to make revenue.
Yeah.
And one of them is ads. And if I give people something that they can sink their teeth into, then they're going to watch. The algorithm is going to support it, and I'm going to get more ad revenue.
Yep.
Then there's memberships, which by the way, I did not know that there were even memberships, or I didn't pay attention to memberships. So I have missed because I am. Uh, I because I'm in some ways just a moron about how to make money off of YouTube. I never paid attention to all the different methods or anything like that. Um, so the only thing I've been looking at the entire time was ad revenue, and that's why everything was driven by that. Like I just want to give somebody my opinion on what's going on, and
Yep.
hopefully they'll run with it and they'll find some value to it. Then there was a membership thing, so now I give members a little bit of additional content, bloopers, outtakes, things like that on my videos, or I tell them what I think about something else that's out there that I'm not covering. Um, and I just started doing that like a couple days ago, because it was just for me all about the the ad,
Right.
that ad revenue, and I can't say that 2 months from now that it won't be a little bit different, because the amount, and I don't have a problem telling people, like, the amount that I made was like $200 in my first month on YouTube, which when I tell people that, people are like, really? Because they made $10 or $20 like their first month.
Yeah.
So like I feel like maybe I did okay. But that number is now quite a bit higher very quickly. And like I'm going to keep providing content, but sometimes that you have pressure. I have pressure that I feel every single day to kiss up to Saitama,
Mhm.
because there's 5 or 10,000 people that want to watch a video that says Russ is the greatest person in the history of crypto
Right.
every single day. And I just can't bring myself to do that, because that's not who I am and that's not what I do. When he does good, I'm going to recognize he does good. But when he does bad, I have to call him on it, because then I'm not being genuine.
Right.
And that's a struggle that I have every day, because there's videos where I think that I did the greatest video that I've ever done. And I can have people who are friends of mine or fans of mine say the same thing, and it gets 1,000 views. Whereas if I do something that's way more kissy kissy
The rah rah.
to everything, it's got 5,000. Yeah, it's got 5,000 views. So that's a struggle. And the membership hopefully will help to offset that. And then I the other day I started doing my first live streams. Live streams, it turns out, are an opportunity for people to contribute to you and to donate to you and to give you money,
Yep.
uh, for what you're. I have no idea this. Like I am an absolute moron when it comes to how to do this stuff. I have been solely focused on people and ad revenue and trying to give them that information that,
Yeah.
like, I skipped over all of the things. So when the money becomes more, then I do wonder, like, what how does my influence change? Like, how does my opinion of stuff, because something is right in your mind, and you decide something is right for you in your mind, but what if it's not really right?
Right.
But you've already decided that it is. So, I concern myself with that all the time.
Yeah. I think you do a good job from what I've seen of towing the line, as they say, of being able to balance, still remaining fundamental and still providing data to back up the opinion. Because if you just say, look, man, I'm looking at this and that graph looks great, well, that's nothing. It means nothing. It's just nothing. You're appealing to people's ignorance. You go into detail. You give data to support the argument, and I applaud you for doing that, because very few do that. Or they do it wrong. I've seen them draw the lines wrong. I'm like, what are you doing?